Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Fans React Friday. Plenty of stuff to talk about tonight, and a lot to sink our teeth into. I'm joined tonight by Ben, who I'm sure many of you will know. How are you doing, Ben?
Indeed, yes, I'm very well, mate. Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, lots to talk about, so ready to get straight into it, mate.
Yeah, nice one. And someone that might not be as familiar to everyone, we've got Thomas. How are you doing, Thomas?
I'm all right. How are you two? Doing okay?
Yeah, all good, mate. Just living the dream life of a Sunderland supporter. And I can just add to the stream as we speak, we've got Gary joining us. Here we are.
How you doing,
Gary?
chaps?
All right.
Yeah, not bad.
Nice to meet you.
Good.
Yeah, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm all right. We're just looking forward to discussions tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. We've got some people joining us in the comments as well. We've got some of the usual viewers. We've got Joanne, we've got Acacia, we've got Ben posting in the chat as well. So nice to see everyone. Hope everyone's well and hope everyone's fit and raring to go, ready to discuss some more of the goings on at this wonderfully stable club that we all know and love. I think before we start getting into the really interesting stuff, we should unfortunately have a little chat about the touch paper that was lit at the weekend. I can see Gary shaking his head already. We'll just very quickly, obviously, a result that we're all aware of, the 6-0 hammering we took at Bolton. I know that Thomas was there. Gary, were you at the ground as well? Yeah. So,
yeah,
Gary, why didn't you start and walk us through what happened?
Shall I start?
Yeah, go on.
I tell you what happened. At half-time when we were 2-0 down, I made a bold prediction that we were still in it. And if there was an early goal second half, we'd come back and draw 2-2. There was an early goal in the second half.
It was the other way.
That's what happens when I'm optimistic. You see, some of the lads on this channel criticise me for being negative and being down on the club. But I tell you, every time I try and lift things and feel positive, it goes horribly wrong. I mean, from my point of view, second half, totally unacceptable. The first half we were poor, but the second half, they capitulated.
Yeah.
And if the third and fourth goals weren't bad enough, the fifth and sixth were a disgrace in my book. It's all right bringing on the likes of Roberts and Clark, who both look sharp, and you've got Stewart, who's busy as ever and putting a shift in. But if you're going to leak goals like that at the back, if you're going to get overrun in midfield and have wing backs or full backs, whatever they are, not coming narrow and helping win the ball back, you're going to struggle. And I've got a theory, lads, and I'll share it just to get the debate going. Is that there was problems in the camp before that game. Mm-hmm. If a team capitulates like that, then something is wrong. He's moved from a back five to a back four. He's dropped Flanagan altogether, who 2 days later moves out of the club.
Yeah.
At no point does he change the formation, even though it would obviously make sense to do so. Maybe he's in the second half. So I think there was problems going back into last week, whether there's some disquiet about transfers, people in and out, to do with Defoe even, and the way Johnson was playing it down. I don't know, but that second half display, for me, left Johnson's position untenable. Because you can't, whatever's gone on before, if the players are going out and producing that kind of performance, they're not playing for the manager. And so it was horrible. I've been watching us 45 years, possibly more, and I've never seen us lose 6-0 before. I've not been there when we've lost a defeat like that, and there was no positives really. So there you go. That's my view.
So I think as well that's probably about as optimistically as you can talk about that game. So
Exactly.
well done for getting us off to a roaring start, Gary. I'll throw it over to Thomas now, because you were the other member tonight who unfortunately was in attendance.
I know. I picked a right away game to go on, didn't I?
Yeah. So what do you think then? Do you agree with what Gary's saying?
I agree with practically everything that Gary says. Yes, I think the first half we were very, very poor, but we were lucky to go in 2-0 down at half-time. And if the players had a bollocking at half-time, had a word said to them, they might have come out and, like he says, might have got a draw, they might have gone on to win. And it just seemed like the players just weren't bothered. They weren't fighting for him. They weren't fighting for the shirt. And contrary to what Gary says, I made a prediction at half-time and said they would capitulate even further, which, they did fulfill in the end. It was worse than what I thought. I wouldn't have thought they'd get beat 6. I thought they might have conceded another 2. But the last 2 goals were just, like he says, they were a disgrace. I mean, as a kid growing up playing football, you always, when a cross comes in the box, you head it back where it's come from. You don't head it towards your own goal.
No.
Like, that goal was just, it was border on hilarious. You don't head back towards your own goal.
Yeah. It's if you don't laugh, you'll cry territory, isn't it?
Yeah,
it
is.
Got to
And that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
Did you last the whole game, Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
Oh, 2 troopers in here then.
I never leave games early, but I was ready for off. He insisted on staying.
Yeah. So some more of the same. A common theme in what you're both saying there is the mentality of the players not being right. There's been rumblings of things maybe going on behind the scenes. Ben, what do you think? Do you think that's probably played a part in that?
I think it's probably played a massive part by the sounds of things and what what's his name? Flipping, not Speakman, Kirill. He said, he said that it was sort of like almost like the last straw, the 6-0 at home. So that sort of obviously says that there's something a little bit sort of been going on for a little while. Obviously, they're not happy with some things going in and out. But I mean, getting 6-0 in the 3rd tier of English football is just unacceptable away from home. It's the worst defeat that we've suffered in our club's history. And I think
I agree with that statement.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Shocking, I think. And it just, it's just credit to the Sunderland fans. We've got like over 35,000 coming on Saturday. Get beat 6-0 last week, over 35,000. It's just a testament to our club and our fans of how resolute we are sometimes, and how resilient we are. But not great. But
yeah, I think
it can only get better, can't it?
Oh, don't say that. We've fallen prey to that mentality before.
Surely can't beat us 7.
Fingers crossed there.
Yeah.
Then he is down Southampton when they got beat 8.
No, thank God. No, I remember though.
I wasn't thankfully.
Was watching it on a not entirely legal stream, and my dad's mate was there. And actually, in one of the shots of the crowd, we saw him walking out when it went 6-0, and my dad started texting him, giving loads of abuse. So, pretty depressing. We can talk about multiple defeats of 6 goals plus, but anyway, yeah, I agree with pretty much what everyone said so far. It's a shambolic result. It's unforgivable. Clearly, there was something not right. I thought it was interesting. I can't remember whether it was Speakman or Kirill. I think it was Kirill, like Ben was saying, when he did his TalkSport interview, mentioned it being not just one reason why they'd sacked the manager. So there's clearly something. I mean, what it is, we can only speculate, but obviously not entirely in harmony behind the scenes. Just before we move on, Gary, you've got some compliments coming in. Joanne saying Gary's looking very smart.
Oh,
so
thank you,
you've
Joanne.
got some appreciation for your dress sense.
I'm going out shortly, so I will have to curtail this. The other thing I say is Joanne's just trying to get back in my good books because she called me when I was on the stream the other week. She said I looked huge. That's not what I want to hear.
So Joanne doing some growling there. We've also got a lot of comments, obviously talking about the search for a new manager. We'll get to that in due time tonight. Don't worry, everyone. So the next thing to talk about then, obviously following the Bolton defeat, was a rather eventful deadline day where we had 1 or 2 incomings. They weren't really covered that much. Nobody was surrounding the academy allied or anything of that nature. Ben, what do you make of that rather eventful 24, 48 hours?
Oh, Do you know what? Oh, I've not spent a night on Twitter as much as I had on that deadline.
Yeah.
You know, all I was doing was refreshing my feed like every 5 seconds. Just
I'm surprised
seeing,
you can feel it into your fingers.
honestly, everything that happened, it was just, I've not known a night like it. For Sunderland Twitter, it was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But I think, well, 2 fabulous signings by the sounds of things. Obviously, getting Defoe back, I think the lift that he's going to give the players is going to be immense. Sort of, he's already talked about him sort of ready in training with some of the younger lads, the under 18s, under 23s, going through drills and all of that. But a real character and a real sort of experienced head that I think we do really need at the minute.
Yeah.
And Matete seems to be very highly rated from Fleetwood, Premier League interest, Championship interest. So people saying, you know, he could be on, well, Speakman said he's surely going to be going on to bigger and better things, whether that's with us or, you know, with another Premier League team potentially. So I've got a lot of hope. I think there were 2 good signings. I still feel we're about a centre-half short.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I mean, that deadline day it's just immense, wasn't it, you know?
Yeah.
Fair play to Wee Philly as well, you know.
Sentences I didn't expect to hear that day were, where is the parents' door? That was a good one.
Yeah.
You know.
We should have sent Sean down there, shouldn't we?
Oh, could you imagine Sean and Wee Philly hovering about the parents' door at the Academy of Lights?
Out for the best view, yeah.
There'd have been some sort of international incident going on there, man. We can't be having that.
I tell you what, the pair of them may be better at reporting than that Keith Downey off Sky.
Yeah, well, we're just in League One, so we've got no interest to the wider
We're not
football
national
community.
news, are we?
No, we're not all over all the sports news at the minute with Roy Keane stuff. No. We're just little old Sunderland. Yeah. Gary, transfer deadline day and all it entailed, what you saying?
This is weird. I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of years ago, there's a guy called Raoul Mort who'd murdered a policeman.
Yeah.
He was on the run. This
he
is
was
what I'm comparing it
technically
to.
what
It's
he
one of those
did.
nights where you kind of put the news on, and then you suddenly start getting texts from people. And it's like, you need to get online. You need to see this.
Yeah.
And I was kind of following Ready to Go, Pure Football message board. And then people start referring to Fan TV. And then my son comes flying downstairs because it's appearing on Twitter. And then I get a text from a who's a mag, and he's heard about it as well. This is about 11 o'clock on a Monday night. So it just seems like everything went absolutely nuts for that period. And I think, you know, the lads over on that channel will sort of say how quickly it escalated. And just, you know, one of those things where just funny. I mean, that's what things like Twitter and doing streams like we are now can do. You know, it goes viral and it goes nuts and it's word of mouth. And I mean, Defoe in the car, you know, what do you think? Are you happy to do that? Whatever he said. What do you think? And just to hear his voice. Yeah. And I'm kind of, that's it. He's here.
Yeah.
Crackers. And you know, like the lads were saying, on the back of a 6-0 defeat 2 days earlier. And, you know, that's Sunderland. It's just been an absolutely amazing, well, not amazing, always in a good way, but just a weird week where you daren't take your eye off social media because you don't know what's going to come next with Sunderland this week. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've sort of got half an eye on the clock because I believe Roy Keane's on ITV's FA Cup coverage tonight. So I'm half hoping that in about 20 minutes it'll go crackers again.
Well, we've got a few comments to that effect. CR1987 mentioning Keane being the pundit tonight. We've got other comments as well. Carl Stewart mentioning, obviously, there's been the rumours floating about social media that we've actually interviewed him today for the manager's position. I think the general consensus is that he's not going to, if it is to be Keane, he won't be appointed today or tomorrow, but you never know. With Sunderland, as we've seen over the past 7 days, anything can happen at any time. Thomas, very quickly before we move on, what did you think of deadline day? I feel like we've touched on a lot of it, but
yeah, I agree with what Ben and Gary have said there. I think we've brought in two players, one with a lot of potential, who has the highest completed passes percentage for Fleetwood. He's a very attacking-minded, forward-thinking player, a bit like Dan Neil in some sort of sense. He's young, he's energetic, he wants to get the ball back, he wants to go forward, and I think he'd be a good signing. I think the signing of Defoe as well. He scored goals in this league for sure. I think he'll bring experience as well for lads up front. However, I do agree with what Ben says when I think we are one centre-half short. And I know there were a few deals that apparently collapsed, loan deals and permanent deals. I know the lad from Fulham, Congolo, was meant to be signing, but that fell through for a medical, apparently.
Apparently very injury-prone, Congolo.
Yeah, there was that. And, I heard we had a move knocked back for Sammy Schmodix from Peterborough as well.
All right.
Apparently. Okay. So I think we're one centre-half short. I would have liked another strong, bully-type midfielder, and I would like another centre-forward as well, I believe.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that assessment that we're a centre-half short. Like, I think...
We can still go in the free agent market as well. Obviously.
Yeah, it's not absolutely finished, but I think... I don't know if anyone listened to the SAFC Unfiltered podcast with Speakman the other day with... Frankie Francis and Danny Collins. I love those two. But they were obviously asking him about the transfer window, and there was a lot of PR speak from Speakman because he's not going to come out and say we've done a terrible job, but he made mention of the fact that we went into the window with 4 centre halves and we've come out with 4 centre halves, but he was including Shimajli in that, who's not played a minute of first team football all season. So it's, on paper, yes, we've got the same number, but when you're playing a back three, with only 4 centre halves,
we can't
one
play
injury
back
away
four,
from.
This is the thing. I think
exactly.
they might just scrap the back three altogether. If we've only got 4, one of which hasn't played any minutes, it must. For me, it would be stupid otherwise.
Unless you start filling square holes with round pegs. Like we've seen happen a lot.
Disaster.
Yeah, I mean, we do have players who can, O'Nien showed that he can play centre half, but it's risky in a high pressure.
It is, because I remember that run we went on last season when O'Nien was playing centre half, and you remember that own goal he scored against Accrington, where he headed it back at the goalkeeper and just headed it into the net.
It's just inexperience, isn't it, in those positions?
It catches you up eventually, I always think.
Yeah. So I think consensus, though, generally, even for what I've seen on social media, is good window, some good signings. I think if you'd offered us this on paper before January 1st, we'd have all took it. But obviously, the adrenaline's heightened with everything that went on in that last week. We've obviously mentioned the managerial search. We've got a pretty big vacancy at the top of the club now. Well, not the top of the club, but the top of the playing side. Was anybody aggrieved to see Lee Johnson go, or do we all feel it was more or less the right time?
I think it was the right time.
Yeah,
I think he should have gone before this, personally.
Yeah. Ben?
I mean, I know a lot of people, Sean included, who think he should have gone after Lincoln last season. I was a little bit on the fence with that. I was willing to give him this season, but I think, in my opinion, he lost me after the Rotherham game. When we went down there and we put that performance in, we got beat 5-1. I think he never really won over the fans as such, completely on his side. And once you lose them, it's hard to get them back on board. And with results like Portsmouth, Rotherham, and the performances as well, not being particularly very good, some of them quite dour, I don't think he was ever going to win the fans back over.
I'll tell you what I think. Sorry, Johnny, I was going to say, I'll tell you what I think Johnson's biggest problem was with being at Sunderland is it's all right being a bit of a purist and wanting to play the nice football in the right way. I get all that, and I think we've appreciated that, particularly in the home games. But as has been said before, we're also the type of fans who appreciate a bit of blood and thunder, 100% tackle going into people and a bit of fight. And let's be honest, over the years, that we've had to accept, maybe a team of 11 triers because we've not always had the most skillful players. And some of the lads who've made their name at Sunderland, and I'm thinking of the likes of Kevin Ball and John Kane, one or two others. Obviously, going back a few years now, they made their name by being all action. You know, no quarter, left unturned. Absolutely going into every challenge and giving their all. Those are the players who've made a name for themselves over the years at Sunderland.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting to is that when he's developing young players, it's okay developing them to play nice football and be decent in possession and the rest of it. But do you know what? What the second half of Bolton showed me is he wasn't instilling the fight. He wasn't instilling that die-hard attitude that says, hang on a minute, we've got 5,500 fans behind us here. I won't dare go over at the end unless I know I've absolutely given my all for a full 90 minutes. And to me, that was what was lacking. I think Johnson thought he's a little bit too clever for his own good. And I think that belief that everything can be dealt with on the coaching side of things masks the fact that sometimes you have to teach, particularly young footballers, sometimes about putting your foot in and having a go and not allowing, winning the one-to-one battles. And there was too many of them lost on Saturday. And I just feel he was more of a coach than a manager, as a man manager. I just don't think he had the players up for it. When we're doing well, we were great. The 5-0s at home, loved them. But when we were struggling, there just wasn't enough backbone in that team for me. And so that's why he had to go. He didn't have the character to get us promoted, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with everything. Well, I'm not sure I agree exactly with Thomas saying that he should have been sacked too long ago, but I do think you were right in saying that it was that Rotherham-Sheffield Wednesday back-to-back set of horror shows where we got beat, I think 8-1 on aggregate over the two games. For me, that was the point where he never really recovered. There's always a doubt. There's always a little question mark next to his name after that point because, I mean, we've said it a few times now. You can't win promotion generally getting beat 4, 5, and 6s.
Yeah.
And it was by a mixture of teams as well. It's not like we turned up to Rotherham and Wigan flying high. Really, they shouldn't be in the league, and they've turned us over. You go, all right, fair enough. Hold your hands up. Better side came beat us, but Portsmouth aren't great this season, and they turned us over 4-0. We've had that many. I forget all the individual results, but they haven't all just been against. I mean, even Sheffield Wednesday. I don't even think they're in the top 6, are they? So that's not on that really. I think I agree with Gary as well. Like what you were saying about he's a bit too clever for his own good. He's great at getting the technical side of the game across. We were playing some great football at times. And when you're on a good run, all the little stuff sort of takes care of itself. You don't have to get the players up for a game when they know that they're going to go on the pitch and put 4 past whoever they're playing. But then once it starts going against us, he just didn't have it in him to turn it round. And like you say, we didn't have that kind of... None of the wins really were that kind of backs to the wall, everyone digging in, you're going to leave you walk off leaving everything on the pitch and you can barely get in your car to go home sort of games. We won all the nice, easy ones, but it's those tricky little games that get you over the line. And fingers crossed, whoever we do bring in is able to rectify that. Ben, do you want to chime in on Lee Johnson?
I was a little bit surprised at the timing. I must admit. I thought 2 or 3 days before the end of the window, I thought that's a bit bizarre. Surely, if you really wanted to make a decision, you'd maybe give a new manager a window, or maybe at least 2 weeks of it to bring their players in or whatever. But so the timing was a bit surprising, but I think ultimately it was the right decision. I think we played some of our best football, but we've also played some of our worst. We've won well, but we've been hammered more than any season that we've been in League One. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's not good enough. And we need someone to come in and do a better job. The squad's a good squad. I think whoever comes in will be able to say, right, we've got a lot of talent here. It's just, we need that sort of mix of someone who can be able to be that sort of player manager person, and with that sort of technical side of the game. If we can balance that right, I think we could be a real force.
Yeah, I think, yeah, your point about the squad's a good one. We've clearly got a talented squad, and whoever it is that does come in isn't coming into, a bomb scare of a side with, missing positions, and you've got, people filling holes. It's a pretty well balanced side. I think it just depends what they want to do with it. And obviously that begs the question who that's going to be. Now, there's one name on everyone's lips at the minute, which is getting everybody very excited and harkening back to some slightly more successful times. Obviously, Roy Keane, currently on ITV, right now as we speak. I think so, yeah. Doing our job, but a little bit worse. What's everyone's thoughts then, Thomas? What do you think about Roy Keane?
I would have Roy Keane back in a heartbeat. I think he would drill in, he would get into them players, he would give them a kick up the arse. I think that's what they need, especially, get them through games when the confidence is very high. I think a big thing with the squad that we've got, especially during this half of the season, is that when the results have gone sour, when, Portsmouth, Rotherham, the weekend, this squad lacks confidence. I think it's a very confidence-based side. And I just don't think Lee Johnson was the right man to instill that confidence into this team. See, I can't see Lee Johnson being the type of man to go in, tear the dressing room apart, shout at people, lay into them when they're not playing well. We've had some really, really bad performances recently. Lyndon Gooch is one of them, who hasn't played very well recently. He's been absolutely awful, and I've got to admit, and I don't want to hate the lad because I do actually quite like him. But we need somebody who's going to get into them. We need somebody who's going to teach them the basics of football, because sometimes they don't know how to do the basics. Like, it astonishes me how much they don't look like they've played football with each other sometimes.
Yeah, pretty well put, I think. The point about Johnson not going in and shaking up a squad, that's definitely something Roy Keane wouldn't struggle with.
I think Johnson talks a good game, but he can't replicate it on the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a manager there who's managed nearly 500 games of football, no promotions on his CV.
Yeah.
And he goes on about this philosophy and this POMO and UPS and all this, and it's just like, football's a simple game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you've got the ball, you look for another player, you go forward, you pass the ball, you get it in the box, header, foot, goal. Do you know what I mean? It's simple. It's just complicated by idiots, I think.
Thomas, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Definitely what you said. Football's a simple game, and I think there is a thing, and I think Moyes was guilty of this, of overcoaching footballers. People like Cloughy. Again, I'm harking back to my younger days here. Brian Clough was the master of man management. He'd tell certain players they're no good because he knew he'd get a reaction. Others he knew needed an arm around them or needed to be told they were the best in the world or whatever it might be. But he was a master of simplicity. He kept it simple, but he got in their heads. But he did make sure every time they went out, they were focused. And I think, sometimes, for all the manuals and the FA badges, I think sometimes people like Johnson can lose themselves a little bit in the technical side of the game and forget it's 11 men against 11 men.
The one I never understand is one up front at home. Why? Because if it's simple logic. You've got two centre-halves on the opposing team. If they see one striker up front, one lone centre-forward, they're just going to think, I'm going to eat you for breakfast, you mate. But then when they've got two problems to think about. The centre-halves in this league, they don't like pace. They don't like people running at them. That's what they don't like. It's
I think there's obviously benefits and drawbacks to every individual formation, but like you say, League One centre-halves are not going to be too worried about dealing with a lone striker as a general rule. Obviously, you can have success with it, but I think, like we've all kind of made the point that Johnson's clearly can get the side playing technically good football, but it's not always the place to do that this far down the footballing pyramid. Even in the Championship, you can win games with brute force sometimes and just overpowering your opponents. Because
every team's like this in this league, they're physical. They like to kick people. They like to, when the referee's not looking, they'll just elbow you in the face and stuff. They're physical. And we don't have that physicality. I think in midfield, who have we got in midfield who's over 6 foot?
Well, Corey Evans is 5'11". I can confirm that after some debate in the group chat. But no, it's a good point. I mean, how many years have we been crying out for a physically strong box-to-box midfielder? I remember saying this back when Gus Poyet was manager, and then we brought in Jack Rodwell, and everyone thought, "Here we go, we've cracked it." Didn't quite go that way.
The less said about that, the better.
Yeah, but just to focus back in on Roy Keane. Obviously, you know, he is very, very different to Lee Johnson. Is he too different? Could you argue that maybe it'll be too much of a shock to the system for the squad we've assembled? Or is that just part and parcel of dealing with a change in manager? What do you think, Ben?
It's a funny one, really. I think, you know, if Keane come in, I think it would give a lift anyway.
Lads, sorry to interrupt, but I've got the TV on in the background and I've got it on subtitles, and I don't know exactly what's been said, but it looks to me as though Ian Wright's saying something along the lines of, "We won't be able to cope without Roy Keane when he goes," is the way I've just read it. And Keane sat there with a smirk on his face.
Oh yeah,
so,
right. Let's
hopefully that's a sign.
Other people might see it differently, but he's sat there with one of those right smiles. So.
I've got it on now, and Ian Wright saying, "We wish you all the best" to Roy Keane. So
hopefully that's a sign.
That could be.
Well, that sounds as promising as I think you could say it. Really, you know.
Yeah.
And I know Dreyfus liked the post about him coming to Sunderland as well.
I saw that.
Yeah.
He did the same with Defoe, didn't he, on deadline day as well?
He did, yeah. And by the end, Defoe was very much an open secret. It feels like it's becoming that way with Keane as well. You know, it's almost a part of the sort of media circus of football that we've sort of, you know, gotten unused to, for lack of a better phrase, over the past few years. Obviously, when you're in the Premier League, every minutiae of every single thing your club does is under scrutiny. Every single thing, who they talk to, who they email, you know, anyone that goes into and out of the training ground is reported on. But in League One, it's not. There's not the resources to cover it that way. But all of a sudden, as soon as we've got two high-profile people supposedly coming into the club again, in Defoe and Keane, the cat's out the bag straight away, because there is the national interest. Keith Downey.
It's the media bias, isn't it?
Yeah, you have got that level of scrutiny back on the club, which would probably explain, to my mind, why Keane and Defoe in particular, it does seem to have come out pretty concretely quite early on, compared to, say, signing Danny Bart with about 20 minutes notice.
Yeah.
Who would everybody's choice be here for manager, number one choice?
The lad who's on ITV right now.
I'm going to agree with you, Johnny. I'm going to say Roy Keane as well.
Yeah. What about you two then, Gary and Ben? Would Keane have been your first choice, or is it just a case of, if he is going to come in, we're happy with it anyway?
I've got to be honest, I didn't know. I mean, to me, ultimately, it's whoever works best with Speakman. Speakman's obviously the main man in terms of recruitment and style of play and footballing philosophy. So it's got to be somebody who works with him. And what surprises me about Keane is Keane's, of course, very much his own man. As I thought we might have ended up with, like Patrick Kaznobo was mentioned, like an
is he the one from Melbourne City?
Who's making a name for himself.
Yeah.
And one or two others.
Rated, apparently.
What was that, sorry?
I said he's quite highly rated, apparently, of what I've seen on social media and all of that. But
yeah, he seems to
the Australian League and everything.
So yeah, I thought it would be somebody like that, somebody a bit left field who maybe we'd never heard of. I mean, countless times in the past when Parkinson was with us, it's like, you know, for God's sakes, get rid. Keane will come in, he'll turn them upside down. That's what we need. So I'm really surprised he was linked with us at this time and with this squad of players. Yeah. But what I'd also say is, once Keane comes into the mix, as other people have said, you know, and I'm not going to have a go at Neil Lennon specific. Well, I am. Neil Lennon specifically.
So stop watching, Neil. Turn off the stream now.
But can you imagine the disappointment if we're expecting Roy Keane and we get Neil Lennon?
Yeah,
You know,
it'd be typical
that's
Sunderland,
a
wouldn't
way
it?
to bring the fan base down, isn't it?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you know, I remember Keano first time around, and you know, even when we were a mid-table Premier League team, he's box office. I knew on a Friday afternoon when he's doing his press conference that there's something going to pop up. He said this about Jack Warner at Trinidad and Tobago, or he said this about the FA, or he's had a go at this one, or he's winding that one up. He gets the headlines, and there is a nice thing about that because you're always being talked about just because he's your manager, and as a personality, you know, I think he's great. So once Keane's on the agenda, then I don't think you can look any further.
Do you think football's moved on from managers like Keane in terms of tactically and like modern players and stuff like that?
See, I was going to sort of touch a bit on that, Tom, because I wanted to ask Gary. Obviously, you might be a little bit more sort of able to remember Keane's first sort of tenure, you know, a bit better than all of us. So, you know, what was his sort of style of play? Was it, you know, tactically, formation-wise? You know, what was it really like? If you can,
I think we're fairly steady 4-4-2, and I don't think he did anything. I don't think he was. Well, he didn't spend much time on the coach on the training ground, which is of course why he fell out with Ellis Short at the end. I think he expected players to. Well, I know he expected players to get the ball down and play football. He brought in. Certainly players. I'm thinking. Did he bring Steve Malbranck in? I think he did.
Yeah,
yes,
he brought in some really good footballers, and Kieran Richardson,
Jibril Cisse as well came in at the same time.
Genman Jones.
Yeah. He brought in good footballers, strong players. There was a lot of power, but he had experience as well. He also got a lot out of players like Nyron Nosworthy. You know, and he instilled some discipline into us where we needed it. But he also got a good balance in the squad. I mean, one of his best signings was Graham Kavanagh, who we brought in the first transfer window, and he didn't play a lot of games for us, but he was brilliant. But so was Dwight York in that season. You know, he got the best out of the experienced players, as well as bringing through the likes of Henderson and Grant Ledbetter, etc. So I think in many respects he'll keep it simple and let the coaches do the coaching.
Yeah, I think as well, it is actually it's often forgotten actually how many below average players really Keane actually managed to mould into a decent side which stayed up in the Premier League. You know, like you say, we had Nyron Nosworthy, we had Danny Collins, as much as
Dean Whitehead.
You know, I mean, Dean Whitehead really was a limited footballer. You know, he was a trier, but you know, he was nowhere near the level of the players that play in the Premier League now. You know, he wouldn't get a game in many teams. It's, you know, Keane, he gets this reputation, and a lot of us play into it of, you know, brute force, enforcer, biting people's heads off and screaming and shouting and ranting and raving. But he clearly knew his way around a dressing room, and for all the talk of how he doesn't accept low standards from players, he obviously had a way of connecting with players and getting the best out of them, which can only bring good things as a manager. So as much as it's funny to kind of be like, oh yeah, Kane will come back and he'll put a rocket up the arse, which he will, he is also a canny operator. You know, he knows a lot. He learned under one of the best managers of all time. So it's not just this sort of nostalgia, oh well, we've got Defoe back, we'll bring Kane back. I think if he's the man we settle on, Speakman clearly will have had a lot of input into that. And he's not somebody driven by emotion and raw passion the same way a support base is. So, you know, it's not the batter and ram appointment that some of the media will try and spin it as if it does happen, I think.
Do you think that Keane and Speakman could work together? Because obviously Keane's got contacts at Celtic, he's got contacts at Man United as well. Obviously, he used them contacts to bring Simpson, Evans and players like that in the first time. So do you think if them two could work together to get to recruit better players, do you know what I mean? He could use his contacts very well. I
think that's the benefit of a director of football approach as well, is that in past days,
these young players are gonna want to play under a legend, like, you know, like what's happening with Gerrard and Villa. They're gonna want to play under a name.
But that's why when you've got a director of football like Speakman and you've got a manager, whoever it is, who's got contacts in the game, you marry those two approaches together and you can pick the best from each. You know what I mean? Back in the day, when a manager wanted a player and he would only want to sign players he knows. I mean, look at David Moyes, Stephen Pienaar, Joleon Lescott, Anichebe as much as he scored a handful of goals. Gibson, you know, some real dross, because he had nobody to tap him on the shoulder and go, David, do you think they're actually any good, or what's going on? Yeah, whereas when you've got that, you know, those two people in position who can actually, you know, discuss and form a list of players. If Keane comes in and just starts spouting off Man United players, I'd trust Speakman to kind of rein him in a bit and say, well, hang on, you know, we'll actually have a look. And vice versa, if Speakman suggests all these 18-year-olds from Denmark and Norway and wherever, because they're all throwing up great things on his data tracker, you trust Keane to kind of say, well, hang on a minute, we have to actually make sure they're going to play well in, you know, the third or second division of English football. So let's just have a minute. I don't know what
suspect, and I've got no idea. I'm just speculating. I suspect the agreement will be Speakman deals with the coaching and he deals with the recruitment and the technical side of it. And Keane is the impact man. He's the man manager. He's there to get the best out of the 15 or 16 come a weekend. Whether they can work together and whether they align in terms of philosophies and mindset, a lot of it comes down to personalities. But I think that would probably be let's be honest, they're looking for Keane to come here, make a big impact and get us over the line, get us in that top two. That's what they're after. But excuse me, everything happens beyond that. You know, it's where we go, you know, come May. So if
we have seen this not work before, though. You know, the director of football route with De Fanti and Di Canio as well, when all them players were brought in, and then Di Canio turned around and basically says, who are these players? I didn't want any of these players. They're rubbish.
I think, though, it doesn't help when the club's already a basket case. They've got no money to spend because Short lost all interest, and he appoints his mate's son as director of football. You know what I mean? True. I think obviously there are problems with every approach, and you can have that disunity between whoever it is that's director of football and the manager. But I feel like De Fanti and Di Canio might not be the fairest comparison for the model as a whole. You know.
It's an example of what can go wrong, though, isn't it?
Obviously,
it's a good point, Tom. It's a good point. I think, you know, it's certainly something to look out for, as we are well aware of how bad it can be. But I certainly
was very bad.
It was, but I do feel it'll be a lot different now, hopefully. But sort of touching what Gary's saying about Speakman and Keane, I think if that was the way that it would work, sort of Speakman would do that sort of head coaching role, and Roy would just be there to sort of manage the players and get everyone fit and ready. Well, it could possibly be quite a match made in heaven if it really works. You know, you got someone like Keane getting a kick up the arse every week saying, "Oh, you're playing crap. Second half, go and do something." You know, that sort of thing. But you got Speakman in the back there handling all of that other stuff. I think that could work really well.
I hope so.
I think the only thing with Keane that I was thinking is, you know, what would his style of football be? And that's why I asked Gary, you know, would it be really like two different ends of the spectrum, from going to someone like Johnson to someone like Keane, who could be like Sean Dyche football, if you know what I mean, 4-4-2, long ball, that sort of stuff. So, but it's all interesting, you know, if he does come in, you know, I'll be ready for it. I'll be well ready.
It certainly will be interesting, won't it? So obviously, we won't know for probably the next few days. It's extremely unlikely any announcement will be made before the game tomorrow, certainly. So we'll have the interim team taking charge of that game. The names escape the top of my head right now, but
Phil Jevons.
Phil Jevons, that's it, yeah. And I think there's a couple of the members of the coaching staff are kind of taking joint charge, aren't they? So in the absence of an incoming manager, we've obviously got 3 points to play for, 3 big important points tomorrow against Doncaster. It's going to be a great occasion, no matter what, because we've got, you know, a fantastic crowd going in. I think it's past 35,000, 36,000 now, has it? We've got the Premier Concourse open. So the stadium's going to be rocking. Obviously, Defoe coming back, playing a big part in that. And I'm extremely jealous of every single person who can go. I would give several limbs to be in that stadium, especially if Defoe gets his comeback goal. But what do we think? All of this sort of circus of the past week is gonna. Do we think it's going to have an impact? Obviously, it'll have an impact on the team in terms of the makeup of the 11. But do we think it's going to play on the minds? Do we think they're going to thrive under the pressure? Could it blow up in our faces a bit? What do we think? Are we confident? Ben. Easy question.
It should be.
Do you know what? It should be, but knowing us over this past week of how unpredictable Sunderland are, it would be typical Sunderland to get beat 2-0 tomorrow. And, you know, I mean, obviously Doncaster aren't the best side, but, you know, they've not been done too badly since, you know, we beat them 3-0 over Christmas. But, I mean, I'm expecting nothing less than 3 points, but there's just that little something in the back of my head thinking there could be a real upset here, especially, you know, if we don't start well. And we've got 35,000 odd fans sort of humming and groaning. And, you know, if things aren't just clicking that way, it can easily go downhill from there. But, you know, that's worst case scenario, isn't it? But we should be fine. We should be more than capable to get the 3 points.
Yeah, not like a Sunderland fan. I have to think about the worst case scenario, eh? Yeah, Gary, what do you think? Do you agree with Ben?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of like you can never get too confident. There's always that thing in the back of your mind, isn't there? Nagging doubt that, you know, we'll mess up. I think what we've probably not what we would have been talking about if it wasn't for everything else that's gone on this week is we've probably been talking about Roberts and Clark coming in and maybe starting. And I think both of those players could really excite the fans. And it's a great time to play Doncaster. They've just been beaten 5-0 at home. I think we've played them something like 9 times in the past. And the best they've ever had is something like one draw and 8 wins we've had against them. Certainly in league matches, something like that. We've got an unbelievable record against them. It's at home. There's going to be 36,000. If it's not going well, I'm presuming Defoe's on the bench. You'd think, got to do if he's running up and down the cinder track, it's going to lift the fans, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that, you know, the players, and I'm thinking of, you know, some of the younger players, I'm hoping they just don't freeze on the day and do, you know, make silly mistakes or do anything that's going to get the fans riled or impatient. I think as long as we score in the first half, then I think it'll just lift on from there and we'll start playing with a bit of confidence again. And let's face it, the players will be thinking, if Keane's coming in, let's say Monday morning,
you better book your ideas up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll get more. You'll get more than a hairdryer off him. Sorry. What were you saying, Terry?
I was just going to say that when we first appointed Keane, he didn't come in, and I think we played at home at West Brom. It might have been a Sunday game, and we'd been awful. He was sat in the stands watching before he got announced, and we went on and won 2-0 and played good football. So that might be the sort of impact it has tomorrow. It's lifted the players, even though it's not all but, you know, confirmed. Listen, lads, I need to drop off shortly because I need to be somewhere else.
Not to worry.
I'm also throwing the huff because my quiz has been no.
Hey, take that with Matthew. Don't start there. Don't start throwing dirty looks my way.
I'm writing a letter of complaint to the manager about it. I'm not happy.
We'll get Roy Keane in. He'll come and bollock all of us. Don't worry.
I know you give him the hairdryer treatment.
We've obviously got other things to talk about. So I'm going to drop off if that's okay with you guys. Thomas, really nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you as well, Gary.
Great to have you on the channel, and I'll speak to you guys next time around.
Yeah,
absolutely. Pleasure as always.
See you, lads.
See you later, Gary.
Right. I think obviously, like Gary said, we've got what is the potential for a really, really good atmosphere at the weekend, and it's massively important to start on the front foot. I can't count how many times I've gone to a home game and everyone's thought in the crowd there's been a bit of optimism. Maybe we've been on a decent run or it's a weaker team. And you think, if we just get at them, get in the faces, start, putting some decent moves together, we'll roll them over, we'll turn them over. And there have been games where we've done that. The games we've done well in this league at home have been where we've started quick and got at them and not let them settle.
We are the top scoring team for the earliest goals in the division this season. Goals in the first 15 minutes.
Which is no small part as to why we're third instead of sixth, like we might be if we were playing a bit more to true Sunderland form. But I think the worst thing we could do tomorrow would be to turn up and start playing slow pedestrian football and risk averse.
Like a Bolton.
Yeah, I think they need to come out and take the game by the scruff of the neck and have somebody just take charge and go, do you know what? We're going to win this game, whether we like it or not. Because unfortunately, as much as we do have a fantastic fan base, and I'll sing our praises to the ends of the earth, there is always that potential for things to turn a little bit ugly.
Toxic.
If the risk is there, and tomorrow of all days, we need to make sure it goes the other direction.
I mean, since Gary McSheffrey took over the permanent manager's job at Doncaster, they've won 1 game in 6. Since they got appointed. He got appointed the game after we played them.
Yeah.
However, that 1 win in 6 was away at MK Dons, and they are no pushovers. I mean, the 4th in the league. They've got some good attacking options, and winning away at MK Dons, we struggled to win there. So there is that potential for a banana skin tomorrow.
To be honest, as a Sunderland fan, a long-suffering Sunderland fan, it worries us more when stats come out that paint the picture we should win a game. Yeah. 1 win in 6 and, a new manager bounce for us and everything's set up for us to win. It would be so Sunderland to turn up and just spoil the party.
Yeah. They're 11 points from safety as well.
I'm Bolton were 15th in the league. We can't be starting this.
The top goal scorer has 3 goals this season, Tommy Rowe. 3 goals.
Oh, God.
Do you know what would be typical of Sunderland, right? We'll lose 1-0 and Oliver Younger scores the winner.
Oh, yeah, of course, because he's only just gone there, hasn't he?
He's been starting for them at centre-half. He got man of the match on his debut.
Well, the nice thing is that obviously we've got that ex-player curse that could come back and haunt us, but as Gary touched on before, it's nice for once for us to have a handful of exciting players who've just come in. So obviously they're unknowns to us in terms of how they're going to fit in the side, but it's unknowns for the opposition. The last thing you want over a long season, 46 games is quite a slog. You don't want to become predictable, which I think we were at times under Johnson. It was either they're going to play 3 at the back or they're going to shit the bed. Like they're the 2 options.
I don't know about you two, but another thing that gets on my nerves is the playing out from the back with the goalkeeper. And it's going to be very interesting on Saturday to see if Hoffman is balling the ball out with the 2 centre-halves left and right to him, or whether he kicks it, because I think the manager was telling him to do that, personally.
Well, usually if that's happening, it's an instruction from the manager or the coaching staff.
Because we kept on doing it, and it was just lunacy. With at Bolton, it was just first goal went in, we're still passing out from the back. The second goal goes in, we're still passing. It was just causing us problem after problem after problem, and we're still doing it. I
mean, I've got no problem with playing out from the back as a philosophy and a way of playing. That's great. Attractive football. I'm all for it. But the thing that makes it a real problem
is when they suss you out.
Exactly. When it goes wrong and you keep doing it. Yeah. And I mean, just to give a non-Sunderland example, something slightly different is I remember when David Moyes was still the Man United manager, before we'd had the pleasure of being introduced to his management style. And obviously he did a bit of a poor job there, and they played Fulham at Old Trafford. It was on Sky, and I watched the game. And after the game, I think they played a draw or something. They were terrible. After the game, Sky showed a graphic, and it showed that Man United had attempted 84 crosses into the box over the course of the game. So nearly across a minute, across the entire 90. And obviously they hadn't scored from any of them. And it's just a perfect example there, a little encapsulation of when a manager just gets an idea so ingrained in his head that even when it's clearly not working, he either doesn't have the guts to change it or is too,
I
in
think
his
that
own.
was his problem. He
Yeah,
wouldn't
spot on.
change
That was Johnson down to a T, wasn't it? It was his way. We play this,
on the
or
highway.
yeah, or we get sussed out, we get banged 5-6-0. He didn't have that sort of plan B, did he? Really?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that was a criticism I made of him several times this season, was the lack of a plan B. And, it sounds a bit like a platitude when you say it, like, oh, well, obviously everyone wants a plan B, but some managers genuinely don't. They think, we're going to play this way and that's the way we're going to play. And I think,
You've got to switch it up.
Yeah, and if Kane does come in, I trust him to not be under those sort of illusions. But whoever we bring in, whether it's Kane or not, that needs to be sort of foremost in the thinking, I think,
But
you need to have
in
different
my
ways of winning
opinion,
games.
This weekend is a must-win. We have to beat these. There is no other outcome.
Well, there are very few games for us now that aren't must-win if we want to get automatic promotion. We've left ourselves in that sort of desperate spot of needing basically every point from now till May.
If not, we need to go into them playoff games with momentum.
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial. We've only got a few minutes left, but, the few, apart from the season where it got called early, the times where we have gone into playoffs, we've gone in some stinking form. And Jack Ross, we were bottling 1-0 leads every week.
One winning 8 last season.
Yeah, 1 winning 8 last season. Well, Streaky Lee striking again. It is vital, isn't it, that we head into it with some level of momentum, whether it's into an automatic promotion charge or whether it's into the playoffs. We can't be sleepwalking there, otherwise we're going to be in bother.
It could go either way because, they've got 2 teams here. We have 1 win in 5 and they have 1 win in 5. So it could go either way. But we have obviously we've got rid of the manager there. They've just been stuffed 5-0 off their local rivals as well, Yorkshire Derby. Their morale and their confidence is going to be rock bottom.
Could go the other way though if they bounce back with it. It's all unknowns, isn't it?
It is.
Unfortunately.
I think very quickly before we go then, in terms of the game tomorrow, obviously we're expecting Defoe to be on the bench. He's in the squad, so is Matete. How different do you think the 11 will look? Do you think it's going to be wholesale changes? Do you think it's going to be a different shape? What do we think is going to happen? Because I'm at a loss to predict it myself.
I think we'd all like Defoe and Stewart up front, wouldn't we?
I mean, if everything being ideal, but you worry about Defoe's fitness. I mean, I know he keeps himself in great shape, but he's not going to be match fit, is he?
Yeah, I worry more about Ross Stewart myself personally, because if he gets injured, we are knackered. We really are knackered if he gets injured.
Yeah,
I think the plan is for Defoe and Stewart to get us through February, and then Broadhead comes back in March.
Well, that's the thing. At least Broadhead does look like he's going to come back relatively quickly compared to what it could have been. I've seen there was something on social media of him running on a treadmill. So if he's able to run, because it was
he's gone back to Everton for rehabilitation.
Yeah, well, I mean that's understandable, isn't it? But I think his was it a hamstring?
Yeah.
And with it being the hamstring, you wouldn't be able to run at all if that was still a major concern. So that's promising. If we do get Defoe, Broadhead, and Stewart back, for once we're in that lovely position where you look at the squad on a match day and thinking, "Well, blimey, who am I dropping here?" For once it's not a case of, "Oh God, who can I actually put in this team who's not going to be terrible?" Which I think should set us in good stead for the run-in. But as we've all seen many times, it's not always that simple.
No doubt what will happen is Defoe will come on at the weekend and somebody will just clatter him. And then he'll go out. That's what will happen.
4 months, imagine.
You've spoken it into existence now, so if it happens, everyone knows it's Thomas's fault that Jermaine Defoe will be out for the rest of the season. Right, we'll have a quick score prediction, then we'll call it there. So I'm going to go with 3-0 to the lads. Goals for Stewart, Roberts and Defoe, because I'm hopelessly romantic. Thomas.
I'm going to say the same as you, Johnny, 3-0.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Defoe's going to get 1 on his debut when he comes on, and I think Stewart will get another 2.
Nice. Ben, you going to temper our optimism or?
I am, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go 3-1.
Right.
I think we'll concede a shit goal.
Again.
That's not that bold a prediction actually anymore with Sunderland, is
a
it?
little bit longer, and then they'll ditch it.
It cannot be as bad as them last two that were conceded at Bolton. Surely.
Yeah.
As long as it's not an own goal, I'll take it in a 3-1.
Letting Declan John score against us, who never even played a game for us. I mean, how?
Right. So
Clark, Defoe, and Stewart.
Right. Well, as long as one of us is right, I'm happy. I'll take any of them. Right. Pleasure speaking to you as always, gents. You know, It was nice to see Gary until he had to nip off because he's too popular. Nice to meet you, Thomas. And,
yes, you too.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see more of each other, and hopefully we'll keep having nice, optimistic things to talk about instead of having to come on and chat about getting thumped 6-0. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for leaving all your comments as usual. And we'll see you all next Friday. Have a good weekend.